Hello, everyone, and welcome to Pod TV's The Media Show, where we discuss with panelists from around the world current events occurring in the media world. And with us today, we have Rick Rosner, former writer for The Jimmy Kimmel Show. Welcome, Rick.
Hello. Good morning.
How are you doing? We lost our lifetime media person, Mark. He just dove out. I guess he's coming back. But Mark has picked a subject for us today of some of the things that we're going to discuss. And one of them is the ever ongoing TikTok issues and what they're going to do with TikTok, you know, the boycott that the government's pulling on them. I personally think it's a witch hunt because every single device we own, from computers to phones, already have microchips from China built in them. They have access to everything about us. They don't need an app like TikTok to do that. So I feel like it's a personal hit on TikTok, and maybe they weren't bending the way somebody in politics wanted them to bend. What are your thoughts on this, Rick?
Last night, my wife and I were watching 60 Minutes, and they did a report on the Chinese Navy, how by 2030, 2035, they're going to have 440 ships compared to the U.S.'s 280 ships, and how two major U.S. shipbuilding programs spent tens of billions and didn't go anywhere. And, you know, my wife and I are just sitting there going, how is China not going to eat our lunch? Now, I don't know whether TikTok it's just a teeny little part of, you know, if it is getting, so everything is getting information on us. I doubt that, you know, it's really helping China much, you know, to see like cute girls doing, you know, dance routines. It's not a major concern among a bunch of major concerns about China, right, which has 4 times our population.
But speaking of those major concerns and everything, there are some folks out there that will be wondering about the whole notion of thinking and how TikTok or Instagram or a number of other things can read our minds. I know that I was talking to a friend of mine that said that they were thinking about some shoes, and the next thing they know, they saw all the shoes appearing in their feed and everything. And I was actually having a conversation with my dad's girlfriend, and she was actually wondering if it's gotten beyond just what we say, but also what we think, because definitely she was saying that she thought something, it might have been a pleasant thought about my dad or something else, and the next thing she knew, there were products that were relating to that thought and everything. So I'm going like, maybe they're reading our thoughts in addition to reading our words. And then I was talking to a coworker at another job, and she was having a conversation with her husband, and he's out of town on a business trip, and next thing she knew, the Siri was typing the text of their conversation. So how much of this is overly intrusive and everything, because she was not, it was supposed to be a private conversation, but Siri decided to make it a public conversation.
I have 2 thoughts on that. One is, well, my wife and I play a game with her phone, which is we'll talk around the phone to see what kind of articles we get within the next 3 minutes, about celebrities we just mentioned. And yeah, eventually they'll get better and better at figuring out what we're saying, thinking, doing. But they don't have to be good. There's just read an article on the Russian fire hose model of propaganda, which is you don't have to precisely target people. You can approximately target people, and as long as you're close, you hit them with 1,000 messages a day, and you can get them to go wherever you want.
Yep, I hear you on that. Speaking of getting people to go where you want, and I did say I was going to bring this up because I just knew you were going to have fun with this and everything, Rick. But, there is a certain thing that is out there called emojis. And apparently Elon Musk is the fan of a certain kind of emoji. It involves a bodily act that we all do, hopefully on a regular basis. And that's why they call it being regular. And that ought to give you a reference to what I'm talking about and everything. And apparently he once tweeted about one of these emojis to the then Twitter CEO, Parag Agrawal, while he was in negotiations to buy the social media service. Now the Twitter CEO and Tesla founder is conveying a similar message to one of his favorite targets, the media. So he sent emails to press@twitter.com, and they received one of those lovely kinds of emojis. So apparently he doesn't have anything better to do with all his money and his time. So he's over there playing with these emojis and sending them out to even media folks. So apparently he likes to play with these kind of emojis, and apparently he might even like the applause and some other ones that he uses as well. So apparently former Arizona gubernatorial candidate Carrie Lake wrote that's exactly the comment they deserve. By contrast, another user asked, "Are you 12?" So they wanted to know whether he was 12 since he was using these kind of emojis and everything. So what's your thought when we got like this major leader in the business community using what can be seen as childish emojis?
Social media in general, and Twitter in particular, is a major force in the degradation of discourse. Since Musk bought Twitter, I used to follow 200 comedians. I get 1,000 jokes a day, which is nice because I learned from seeing other people's jokes. And now comedians are gone, and it's Congressman Ronnie Jackson, it's Marsha Blackburn, it's the House GOP Judiciary Committee, it's Trump War Room. It's 85%, super conservative BSers spreading BS in not nice ways. And then I get on there and I'm like, F you, eat my butt, blah, 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 blah. Whatever I can say short of, something actionable that'll get me kicked off the site. And then somebody wrote me over the weekend saying, what the hell happened to you? Your tweets used to be funny and insightful, and now they're just like stupid insults. And that is the Twitter environment right now.
Yep, I hear you. But
but didn't Musk kind of do this in order to promote the rude attitude for freedom of speech with Trump, and so everybody could have freedom of speech? I mean, wasn't that his impulsive reaction? Was I want everybody to have the right to be rude?
Yeah, except he's also Trumpy, and and Trump is a major. Trumpy. It turns out he's Trumpy. He's given a lot of advantage to right-leaning voices, and right-leaning voices that aren't truthful. I wouldn't mind right-leaning voices that get up there and they post links to things that are true or statistics that are true, but they post BS all the time.
Well, it's like the recent news on the right wing going to the hearings for the Border Patrol, right? And they were like, "Oh, the Democrats didn't show up. They don't care. Da, 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 da. We're all supposed to go to this big hearing." And come to find out, they have already, nobody posted the truth of the story. The Republicans were using it as a political gameplay to make the Democrats look like they lacked due diligence, when in fact, they had already had 2 to 3 field trips since December to the border to discuss this. Everyone wrote a 4,200 page on a new bill to be dispersed for border control of $1.7 trillion. And the Republicans go, "Oh, okay, let's go have another field trip and play." And the Democrats go, "No, we don't need another field trip. We don't need to waste our money. We don't need to spend our money that way. We just need to focus on things because we've actually seen progress in decreasing the opioid overdose rates and death rates to by 2.5%, which isn't a lot, but a positive direction is better than no direction." And their thing is we don't need to waste any more time or money having field trips because you want to do political campaigning, which is what the agenda was and which is what they used it for. They went and said the Democrats didn't show up. So the Democrats, to me, were being more, responsible with the money being spent on a field trip. I mean, we don't need to do field trips every time we want to do, what is best for the border you
don't have to go on a field trip at all, but apparently Musk is also accusing them of being reverse racist because he's saying that they're being racist against white and Asians, and that was his defense of the comic creator Scott Adams, whose strip Dilbert was dropped by many newspapers after a racist tirade. and all in that space. And I do know that a lot of times comedians will make jokes that are homophobic. Sometimes they'll make jokes that are racist. Sometimes they'll make jokes that are sexist. And I guess the question is, and you used to do comedy writing, is Rick, how far is too far? And is there any such thing as too far? Or can you do like apparently Chris Rock did and come back a year later and still make the same jokes and basically just dig in further in your apparently first stances that got you slapped? Because apparently he's come out with a whole new movie, and the movie is basically his defense of his actions and all along those lines. And he's basically saying that, look, they knew what they were getting into, and they knew what I was going to say. They put their history out there in the open, because it is not a unknown fact about Jada's alopecia, and it's not an unknown fact that they're in an open relationship, and it's not an unknown fact about some of the other parts of the jokes that he told and everything. So what is your thoughts about this notion of how far is too far to go with a joke?
I think you can joke about whatever you want as long as you understand the current environment. You can make homophobic jokes, racist jokes, as long as there is a component of you make yourself the ignorant person, the racist, the homophobe, and then you put the joke on yourself. The joke is how dumb you are for being that way. And you can get away with a lot of stuff that way. Just over the weekend on Twitter, since Trump looks like he's about to be indicted for paying off Stormy Daniels, I said I did a backhanded defense of Trump. She said that he had a small penis, and I said, well, maybe it's not that his penis is small, it's that his thighs are so big and flabby, and he's so lazy that his penis just didn't even have a chance to get out there.
But is that even appropriate? I mean, come on, people. I mean,
come on now.
Assault
with a dead weapon.
Assault with a dead weapon.
Is it appropriate? No, it's not appropriate at all. But beginning with Clinton and the stained blue dress, and further back, nobody knew what Kennedy was up to, but Kennedy had a sex room in the basement of the White House.
This has gone on a long time. I do want to say something on the Chris Rock situation, which tends to flare up occasionally with a little bit of gaslighting. A lot of people, I did a little bit of background research. And, first off, I think it's very inappropriate if you're roasting somebody to drag their spouse or significant other into the roast. I mean, that typically has never been done before. But what I did discover is that since about 2015, Chris Rock and Jada have had a very serious situation going on, not intimate at all, but a hate type situation against each other. Some things that Jada wanted Chris to do, then Chris chose not to do. And then he started throwing some hate messages back at Jada. So he was directly and intentionally insulting Jada, and that should have never been done. That lacked integrity on his part as a comedian, and lacked huge integrity at the Oscars a year ago. And it's the reason why I don't even want to watch it anymore, is because the integrity had dropped so low. You don't roast people and drag their wives into it. You roast that person.
He deserved to get punched.
He deserved.
Dan, I disagree. When it comes to violence, I disagree. Whatever you say is a slap.
I think what Will should have done was just said, keep my wife's name out of your mouth. That's what he should have just done. He just should have said, hey, Chris, that was rude. We all know that you have issues with my wife. I would appreciate it if you keep her name out of your mouth. Maybe hitting was a little drastic, but I think Will had just had it with the bullying, because I think that verbal abuse on the stage like that can just go too far.
That was too far.
And I think roasting somebody's spouse rather than roasting the person lacks integrity. But this is what I want to tell the Oscars. We all know Chris Rock is rude and crude on stage. That's the kind of comedian he is. You could have brought somebody on board with a little more integrity, and that would never happen. So because of that, I choose really not to watch the Oscars anymore, because or even a Super Bowl halftime, because I just want integrity in my life. I just want family time to be family time, and it's not that anymore. Everybody wants, but there was a huge controversy going on between Jada and Chris Rock since about 2015, and he was dragging their dirt on the stage, and I think that was very wrong. I just think
the Oscars are, that means that the ratings were up this year, but the long-term trend is down because compared to the 70s when there were 3 networks and the only 3.5 hours of glamour you could get each year was everybody had to watch the Oscars.
Right.
But what you're calling integrity or crudeness or what, it's tough because everything is like, there are no ratings or censorship for non-broadcast networks. If FX or AMC wants to run a show where they say the F word, a dozen times, the FCC can't stop them because they're not broadcast, they're cable. South Park made fun of the whole system a long time, maybe even 10 years ago, by seeing how many times they could say the S word in one episode. And I think they said it more than 100 times. And everything is open for consideration now, including the crudest, parts of our lives. And sometimes you can get, insight, compared to my wife loves the Brady Bunch still. I've always hated it because it was such a constrained, artificial version of life that it was lazy and you couldn't talk about any real issues. And now everything's real issues to the point where that becomes lazy, that if you've got a bunch of bad writers, you just go dirty and that's your show. But it's tough to keep eyes on your TV show or movie without being extreme because everybody has seen everything now.
Right.
I'm sorry, Kim, you brought up something. Chris Rock was not an unknown. He has a history. He has a background. They knew him coming in. They either put boundaries on him or not.
I know
And
they
also-
should have never hired him if they want integrity.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But the audience there, by not standing up and walking out, is basically condoning what he's saying. Am I wrong?
Do what?
The audience, by not standing up and walking out on his performance, is basically condoning his speech. Am I wrong?
It's a lot to ask people in that position, the most famous people in the world on the biggest award show in the world, with who've been prepped for that show for weeks by their handlers, by their whole, asking them to have an independent thought and do something independently is because
way too much.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's called having a spine, is it not?
They don't have one. That's the problem.
Thank you.
Well, not only that, but how much, and this is the question I was going to ask Rick and everything. We're talking about an individual and his being targeted, but I was talking to some friends of mine and they brought up something that I had not thought about until we were having this conversation recently. But there are parts of the establishment that are known to have a problem. And Dan will love this because I just recently found this out. But apparently it is a known fact that not just the walking kind, whether it be the Democrat or Republican, but apparently it is a known fact that the reason that Sox was enjoying the White House was because there is a known rat problem in the White House. Apparently it's not a secret in the Capitol. It's not a secret among people in DC and everything. Apparently it is very well known that this has been an issue for a while. So if that is the case, and I have no reason to doubt that that is not the case and everything, is that fair game for folks to make jokes about the rat infestation? Because apparently there is a very much of an issue in the White House.
We've known that for years.
Mark, you talking about rodents or you talking about people?
And the bigger they are, the bigger the rats they are.
No, I'm talking about the actual rodents. So that's why I use Sox as an example, because Sox was Clinton's cat. Because the person that told me this actually made a joke about it. It might have been one of us, one of our shows, because he was saying that the time that Monica was being having relationships with Clinton, Sox was, bringing party favors by the party and everything, and it was the rats and all along those lines. So,
well, the house is more than 200 years old. I just heard a Dave Chappelle routine defending Trump and George Bush for not spending any time at the White House because it's an old building that's got problems.
right.
And
It's
so
got-
sure you'd want to go back to your gold toilets in Florida.
right. Where it's a
Hey,
lot.
There's a proposal to move it west, by the way.
The White House?
Yeah, everything. US
Because of rising sea levels.
Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, I read something.
So we're gonna move it. We're gonna move it to California. I'm sure that the folks on your side of the
No,
market-
not California. They
Love
got
that.
the same problem. They're going to fall off. I heard something about Nebraska or Colorado, something like that. I don't remember. I read it, but
Nick said
hi,
hello
Nick.
from
How you
Spain.
doing? Hola,
He's
¿cómo
in Spain.
está?
Nick, you're frozen.
Bien, gracias.
He's in
We
Spain
miss
today
you.
and everything. He is being missed for everything. I did have a question for you, Lee, and it was the question I asked Rick earlier, because apparently Elon Musk is having a field day by giving poop emojis and all. I'll just say what they are. I'm just being a catty the last time. But have you sent out any to your political opponents, any poop emojis? And what about you, Dan? Have you sent it to any of your college students? And do you have any problem with them going out and all in that way?
I haven't had college students in a long time, and I've only used the poop emoji once. I think it had to do with because somebody else used it, and I had a short lapse of judgment and sent a poop emoji. I am sorry to the entire world for having done that.
The poop emoji, I used to think it was just like a brown chocolate kiss with a smiley face on it. I had no idea it meant poop.
It's a turd. It's a turd.
It's a turd, but I didn't. It looked to me like a chocolate, whatever. So when I found out, because it's smiling, but there's actually a lawsuit right now from a whiskey bottle, and somebody made a dog toy, and they used the particular kind of whiskey, and it's a trademark lawsuit that the whiskey company decided we're not going to tolerate this, and they made this whiskey bottle and it's got poop emojis all over it. Referencing, I guess the whiskey is poop, but and their dogs eat it. And I don't know, but now it's a huge lawsuit. I mean, huge trademark lawsuit going
That's
on.
because it flows downhill. It flows downhill.
It does.
It
It
does.
does.
He flows downhill. By the
You
way,
could look,
apparently-
you could look at it I mean, people have talked about poop for all of human history.
Mhm.
Sorry, my phone's going. But Chaucer and the Canterbury Tales. I think there's poop in that, and there are just some eras, like the era we grew up in. The 70s was very, censored and bowdlerized, and there wasn't a lot of poop talk. And you could say that we're just reverting to a more normal, time in history.
Well,
where poop is part of the discourse.
As Forrest Gump said, it happens.
I mean, everybody poops, if you're healthy, like at least once every 2 days.
Or so, yeah.
Well, I mean, but it's amazing to me that people get real creative and they find these things to do, and then, somebody's going to have to sue them. Here, I'll share with you what the dog toy is. It's kind of funny. There you go. Can you see it?
We see booze.
There you go.
I see a dog face on it.
Bud Spaniels instead of Jack Daniels. It's called Bud Spaniels. And then
I don't see the infringement.
no, apparently on the back it's got 40% poop, 100% whatever. I mean,
Yes.
the back of it is more, but the front of it is what Jack Daniels is. Hey, you're being kind of stealing our trademark and making fun of us, and we don't appreciate it.
Well,
I think it's
the legal defense of that is, did you make any creative changes? And they did. They changed it to a dog booze. So
Yeah,
Jim,
Jake's different.
I just want to make one quick point. Sometimes people, companies bring lawsuits not because they want to win, but for publicity.
it's all about the publicity, I think, at this point. Because I know Jack Daniels, and I'm not going to judge them based on this dog toy. When I looked at it, I laughed and I go, "Oh, that's funny." I'm not going to judge the taste of whiskey by that. I mean, I didn't like their whiskey to begin with, but I'm a Maker's Mark girl. Let me tell you, Kentucky girl, Maker's Mark all the way. Yeah, but to me, Jack Daniels is not the top shelf. But at the end of the day, that kind of dampened me on Jack Daniels. Bye, Dan. But I think we focus too much on the wrong things, kind of like what Rick was mentioning that earlier. Why aren't we focusing on the things that are important to society's needs as opposed to all these little frivolous things? And get back to the reality of things. Use social media for good things too. Why does it always? But one of the things I've noticed, I'll run tests on marketing, and I'll find like good information video clips, and I'll run them and maybe get a couple thousand hits on them. I'll run something goofy, stupid, has no common sense to it whatsoever, and I'll get 5 million hits. It's ridiculous. It's insane, but this is what people want to do and share is the goofy, ridiculous, stupid things. But here we get back and roll back to what's important. Is it getting the views and the hits? Because Nick and I are learning, that's how we're going to monetize. We've reached 1.9 million views, and I'm real proud of that. Our goal was 1 million by now, and we reached 1.9. And so we've set a new goal with ourselves by summer, what we want to be doing. But it's the views that get you the sponsorships and things like that. So, I mean, do you become serious and project the seriousness and the truth in journalism? Or do you play the games that everybody else is playing to institute controversy and just get the views? I mean, it's just.
Yeah, Kim, along those same lines, and I was having a little bit of technical things going on there, but there is a trend, and I know that Rick is familiar with it, but I was wondering what his thoughts and also Dan's thoughts and yours are about this notion that
we lost Dan, but Lee's back. Lee's
and
we're playing tag. Musical chairs.
But what are we thinking about this notion of paid services? Because apparently Instagram wants you to be verified, Twitter wants you to be verified, and they all want to have you pay money to be verified. So they want to know that I'm really a Mark and not a robot Mark and everything. So they want me to be verified in all of that space, but they're definitely saying that they want to do it in some sort of paid model. So that is the other news that I saw going in the whole media space, is that there is a big push to have verified accounts. So you have to have a verified Facebook account, a verified Instagram account, a verified Twitter account. And if you're a high school kid or a college kid, that could add up to a lot of money and everything if you're trying to be verified in all of these places. So what are our thoughts about this notion of verified accounts?
Mark, is it the company that wants you to be verified or the people who want to be verified? I think people want it.
The companies are the ones.
The companies aren't requiring it. It's just I think people want it so other people know that is the real person.
So Twitter wants $8 a month for paid verification.
Right.
If you want to be right, if you want the check mark.
A lot of people have already been verified for free under the old Twitter. I don't know whether we'll get to keep our verification. Verification used to mean that you are the person you say you are. Right. Now it's going to mean you're paying money every month, which allows BSers to BS, to masquerade as whomever. But on the other hand, like companies, they start off all nice and they give you a bunch of stuff for free, but it's not sustainable. And when they want to start making money, then they start charging for stuff. Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion and basically lost a couple tens of billions of dollars through incompetent management right off the bat. And now he's trying to recoup.
He also bought it, I think, at the top of the market too, because a lot of the social media platforms have scaled back since then, Facebook or whatever.
Hey, Lee, you're going to love this one. Apparently, and this just came down an hour ago, Twitter appears to be tested a new verification process for Twitter Blue subscribers that would involve submitting a government ID, Code-level insights reveal a process for submitting a photo of the user ID, both front and back, along with a selfie photo to verify their Twitter account. This feature is listed alongside others only available to Twitter Blue subscribers. So apparently, like support for editing tweets, uploading longer videos, organizing bookmarks with folders, and other paid subscription perks. So apparently, they're testing a government ID-based verification. So you got to.
Oh, that's not uncommon though, Mark. Facebook gave me the blue check mark years ago, and they required a passport or a driver's license as proof of identity.
For Twitter, you had to be at least a little famous to the point where you were at risk of somebody damaging your public image by imitating you. But once you got the invite to be verified, then you had to submit official ID.
And apparently that's what's already happened in this Twitter case. They're already saying that they've hit some snags upon the first launch as user verified themselves and then began to impersonate other high-profile individuals. So there are probably a bunch of people out there.
The deal is
both
that
Biden and Trump.
With Twitter, Musk doesn't know what he's doing, and sometimes he only figures out what he's doing wrong when he does it, and then people say, "Well, no, that leads to this," and then he has to, backtrack.
He's got it back. Well, he's not the only one who's doing all kinds of crazy things, because apparently Mark Zuckerberg is leading into Meta's year of efficiency the wrong way, and multiple rounds of layoffs are going to be damaging also. So apparently the whole Meta thing with the Facebook version isn't exactly working, because they just announced some new layoffs and they're doing some other things. But as I've said, and as other people have said, the whole Meta concept was a misnomer in the first place, because there are various metaverses. So to call yourself Meta when there are various metaverses is a little preposterous. You know what I'm looking for.
I mean, the general trend is that humans, individual people, versus the whole world of everything, we become less able to avoid being manipulated and to avoid being just cogs that can be ping-ponged around, like at the behest of things that are smarter than us. And we're entering the world in which humans are, at least unaugmented humans, aren't the smartest things out there. We're not there yet. We're at the point where we're panicking about it, where we see AI and wonder how smart it is. And if you really poke at it, it turns out not that smart. It's still the people who are programming the AI and giving it the data. But as time goes on, other forces will be able to outthink us. And we have to figure out how to
there was a futurist that came out, I think it was either last week or the week before, and he is actually saying that, and Kim may be interested in this because, well, she may not want this now because of certain things that have happened in her life and everything, but he was saying that within 6 years, by 2030 or 7 years, that we could be experiencing immortality, because he's had some great track records on certain things, including some things that are obvious, like the rise of the internet and a couple of other things that it seemed like they would have been obvious predictions. But he did say,
Mark,
in 7 years, those little things that they are putting in our body will be able to fix our body. So those little robots will go in there and they'll fix whatever.
Mark, you're going to kill the whole industry for life insurance.
Say what?
You're going to kill the whole life insurance industry. Immortality.
Yeah. The main immortality guy, the guy who's most famous for wanting immortality, is Ray Kurzweil. And right. Kurzweil says that by 2029, medical advances will buy us 1 extra year per year, because you don't need to live forever. All you need to do is live long enough for the next medical therapy to come along and save you. What initially you'll need, a lot of money to buy, there will be pigs that'll be genetically engineered to be able to grow you a new liver, a new kidney that your body won't reject. But, your own personal pig will probably be, $150,000.
And that was who I was referring to, was Ray Kurzweil. So I'm glad that you remembered the name and everything, because that is the one that made that prediction some 7 days ago. So yeah, he's the one that came out and said that, but 2030 we can all live this lovely immortal life and everything.
So it's a brave new world where we may be able to get all of our wishes granted at sometime in the 2030s or 2040s, but we will no longer be the apex thinkers on the planet. We'll be, we'll live lives of long lives of luxury, but our autonomy might be limited by, just not being as smart as anybody else.
Well, not that. Wouldn't that be like the ultimate version of groupthink? Because when I first heard about this, I was talking to some friends of mine about it. We were thinking about a collective that was very active in Star Trek, known as the Borg. So if that's what we're going to be, wouldn't that just be one big variation of the Borg?
Yeah, I call it the worldwide thought blob, where, that's a different kind of immortality, where if you upload enough of your thoughts, if there's enough video of you, that's a different, that when we learn how to mathematically replicate consciousness isn't that tough. We'll be able to figure it out. And when we're able to do that, it doesn't matter if your body lives on, if we can move your consciousness elsewhere. And the cheapest place will be some kind of metaverse. And so a lot of people may live on in virtual worlds, not immediately, but, say by the 2080s, you'll have more and more people, living virtually because it's cheaper than occupying a real body that needs a real apartment and real transportation and food. And just stuff's going to get weird.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It's going to get weird. Speaking of getting weird, I was going to come back to Kim and everything. I am highly upset with myself because I was watching one of the videos as we were talking. It was a young lady that is getting some fame and fortune because of a misfortune that happened in her wedding and everything. And I had a misfortune. I never got married, so it wasn't at a wedding, but a misfortune that happened at Haiti. And I missed my TikTok moment because apparently there was a young lady that was shown on one of these social media platforms that got a lot of attention because at the wedding, a bee decided to get in the middle of her dress. So she was showing what was going on as they were trying to get the bee out of the dress, because that became the code image and everything. And I was thinking to myself, because yesterday when I was working at the Cultural Arts Center that I work at, there was a bird that got loose. I managed to get the bird out. We didn't have any fights. He didn't get into my church or anything like that. But I was like, I missed my TikTok moment, Lee, Rick, and Kim. I need to have a flapping battle with the bird, and then it kind of hit my TikTok fame and all that. I just managed to get the bird out of the building by moving the bush that the bird was on toward the door, and then the bird realized that I would
no do-overs.
Exit the exit.
Somebody had to have videotaped this, Mark.
It was videotaped.
There's a camera somewhere.
Security camera.
So find out if anyone, because that would be, you're right. Those kind of little moments just run rampant on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram. People love it. I would hate to see a bee. One, I'm allergic to them. But I cannot imagine being a bride with a bee in your bustle, right?
But I
can't imagine a bird either. We got all these bees going on. But yeah, wedding video clips make probably the biggest go virals ever, whether it's the groom busting out crying to, somebody slipping to, it just seems to be, those events seem to just run rampant.
Wait till AI is able to generate video clips. AI is already able to generate news photos of things that never happened.
Right. Predicting the future.
I saw one of a bunch of Native Americans protesting at the Lincoln Memorial. Yeah. And the guy who put it up is an AI artist. He works with, and he said, what tells you that this isn't a real news photo? And people said, well, okay, the number of columns at the Lincoln Memorial, they got those wrong. Mm-hmm. And the Native Americans' faces are too similar to each other. And the rate at which, things become out of focus, the farther away they are, isn't quite right. And their earlobes aren't right. But at first glance, it looks totally real. And before long, you're going to be able to do a prompt that says, raccoon crawls on bride. And it'll generate a 30-second clip of
That already exists now. I just was scrolling through some things last night, and when I was a little bit bored with what phone I had left over, and what I noticed was they now say, "Do you want to take your book and make it a movie?" And I've noticed people have been experimenting with this, and they've been like telling stories on a thread. And then videos of, and actually videos that I recall from Instagram and TikTok have been pulled through and have created the movie. Like literally like love stories, right? Weddings, military guys turned whatever, right? But somebody has been able, like you were talking about, take an AI and it will literally recreate whatever story you write. And I noticed this because I've seen it kind of popping up occasionally, but the stories bore me. So, but then I noticed a video clip of a wedding that I recently watched, and I'm like, how did they get this in this movie? But they literally created a movie based off somebody's story by pulling videos from all over the web and meshing them. It was weird. It was very weird. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of this yet.
Well, earlier you were talking about the poop emoji and how things have gotten cruder, and like AI, the products of AI, the AI movies, the AI whatevers, they're not original. They generally just take what's already out there somewhere and glop it together into a thing that seems very kind of familiar. So in the future, it may be that perversity and crudeness that, that only a messed up person has, that gives these artificial products any kind of spark of originality.
Speaking of originality, what are we thinking about schools? Because apparently this is back in the news again on today, because there is a national trend that our youth are in the middle of a mental health crisis. And if they were, with all that's going on in the world, COVID, the Ukraine war, a number of other things, I can see where they would have that going on in their mind. But apparently school districts across the country are taking on social media, filing lawsuits that argue that Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, and YouTube have helped create the nation's surge in youth mental health crisis and should be held accountable. So they want to sue these fine folks. And it started with a suit in Seattle. It's picked up momentum in recent weeks in school districts in California, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, Florida. So it doesn't seem like it's that much of a right or left thing, because California is definitely very liberal and definitely Florida is very conservative based on their politics and everything. So it does seem to be across the board that folks are upset with social media and are ready to sue social media because it's showing that there are rising thoughts of suicidal thoughts among our high school students. There's definitely a rise in the depression among our youth, and not just high school kids, but youth in general. So there are a variety of people that are ready to sue these fine institutions because apparently they have too much time on their hand, meaning the kids do. So they're spending too much time and targeting each other, bullying each other, and doing a number of other things. That is the reason that we are having this crisis and all in that space. So, Lee, what's your thought?
My wife works in the counseling office of a high school, and it's we're of two minds. One is, well, okay, like it's not like it was when I went to school, where I had a PE teacher who'd just slap everybody. The bullying was physical in the 70s. Now it's more psychological. So it's like, oh, those babies. On the other hand, all those kids are super beaten up psychologically. My wife tells me, what's going on with some of the, not by name, with the kids at her school. And, kids are I'm driven crazy by Twitter. And I'm freaking in my 60s. You take a kid who's 15 and doesn't know beans about the world, and you put them in this social media world plus everything else. And yeah, those kids are getting knocked around. And, to some extent, the right freaks out over like gender fluidity. And to some extent, exploring different gender roles is a defensive reaction to, trying to find your place in a world that is kind of kicking your ass.
I know. I mean, you can't be yourself anymore, and people can relate to it. Everything's a lawsuit. It's very disappointing to see how things are rolling and how the media abuses it. I mean, and I have to agree with Mark. The rise in suicides and teen deaths is just devastating. And a lot of people argue with me on this issue, but I truly believe it is our social media, influenced by our social media and video games and TV. I believe that what we have used in all of our media world has been a negative influence on our teens in our future.
It's the fire hose.
It is.
When I got bullied, and it took me a long time to figure out when I was getting bullied that I wasn't the only one, that everybody was getting bullied, that because I also bullied some people. So I figured, it's that the people who feel bullied don't see the whole structure of being in junior high in 1974. But the incidents, like somebody would push me into a locker, somebody would knock my notebook down, and my papers would fly. But today, some kid who's on social media, it's like 2 bad things might happen to me on a bad day in 8th grade. But a kid on social media might see 150 terrible messages in a day. And it's a fire hose, and it makes people sad.
Well, it's devastating because there's so much good we could use this for. And that was something I was kind of contemplating last night. How can we turn this around and flip it, and rather encouraging people to become negative and post negativity, but encourage the positiveness. Cyberbullying has gotten way out of hand, and people are not have empathy at all. I mean, I'll have people say some of the rudest things to me, and unfortunately, I just don't care what people say about me because I know who I am. I'm a very strong individual, but sometimes it does hurt. It's like, do people really believe this stuff that they say or the rumors they spread? But at the end of the day, I know who I am. But the thing is there's so many people out there who don't, and they play on and rely on everything that is said to them in social media. And it would be great if we could just impose upon them not to, that this is just junk. What people have to say about you is none of your business. They don't know you. They don't know who you are. And if you learn to ignore them and ignore the words they say and try to let those labels wash off of you, and rather than using the labels to victimize yourself and to victimize a cause, but just empower it. Say, you know what you have to say doesn't matter to me. That's you. That's your negativity. That's your world. This is who I am. This is what I do, or this is our cause. But it would be beautiful if we could just learn to let those labels and words just not impact us anymore, because they're not nice. They're not nice.
That's true. Kim, I found out something just for you, because I know we were going on and we still got a few more minutes, but I found this just for you since you wanted it and you wanted to see what it looked like and all in that space. But this is actually the young lady that went through the incident with the beef. So this is what they put on, and like you said, they definitely will reveal all that what happened in this 1-minute video. So let's see what happens as they try to help the young lady and her key moment. Hold on, I'll give some volume to.
It's in your dress, yeah. It's a hornet. Where is it? Honeymoon's a little early.
Struggle. I promise to cherish you.
I promise to cherish you. It's in your dress, yeah. It's a hornet. Where is it? Honeymoon's a little early.
Struggle. I promise to cherish you.
Promise to cherish.
All right, so it's keeping it's
Yes,
hold on,
looping over and over. But I'm getting goosebumps watching it, going, "Oh my gosh!" I mean, one,
No,
it's
I
your
got that.
moment in life,
I
and
got past the loop and everything.
Oh, I'm glad I feel it. Okay.
did I get it out? It's freaky. Way to go. I'm so
I
allergic.
wanted to see more
It's-
waving arms around and crashing into the buffet table and stuff.
Yeah, that probably would happen too. But my husband would do the same thing for me. He has been known to literally just grab the bee, even though it would sting him because I was allergic. He's been known to grab them and just throw them away. So it's scary. I can't imagine having that trap. And I've had them in my pants before when we were working in the yard, and one came up my pants, and I literally we were just bought the property, and he literally ripped, because there was more than one, and he ripped the pants off of me and just started shaking them and trying to get the bees to go a different direction to leave me, and he had to rush me to the hospital because there wasn't time for an ambulance. We lived out in the country, but that's scary. Like, I don't know if I find that humorous enough to replay it. I'm sitting here holding.
We're gonna replay it one more time to see if we can get that.
Oh, you want to watch me just hold my breath? Don't you?
We'll watch you hold your breath and all of that space, and we get to that.
Skip to the middle to see if there's.
It's in your dress. Yeah. It's a hornet.
I can't control it.
How do you go into the early? Look away, Austin. Look away. Let's go later. Oh, I'm glad I feel it. Okay.
Breathe.
Now that sounds from
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah.
That is just still, it gives me goosebumps.
How come he only didn't have to wear a tux? He got to wear blue jeans to his wedding.
Yeah, isn't that cool? And that's a lot of money saved when you do things like that. I'm noticing a trend of the younger generation. The girl spends $20,000 on her wedding dress, and the groom gets to come in jeans.
Well, one of my college mates, he actually, that's one of the things he did. Of course, he was a star athlete at the time when Doc Rivers got married, and he's now divorced, and actually recently divorced, and the coach of the 76ers. But when he got married, I do remember, because I knew some of his friends were some of my friends as well, that his wedding, all the groomsmen came in sneakers because they were athletes. So that was what they did. They all came dressed in sneakers, but they were dressed in tuxes and sneakers. But it was, I guess, his salute to being a basketball player was that they were all going to come in sneakers as part of the wedding.
Yeah, I mean, and again, guys get the look out because girls spend more money on the accessories of the dresses for the wedding than they do anything else. I mean, literally a wedding for a girl, if she's part of the wedding party, is going to spend a good $500 to $1,000 just on the accessories and the dress and the shoes and just on that, and hair, makeup. That probably doesn't even include the hair and makeup. And then you got to do the hair and the makeup. And now they hire makeup artists for each person in the wedding party. I'm just like, wow, this is insane. Nobody just gets married anymore. I mean, one of the most beautiful weddings I ever attended, and I wish I had a camera to video it, was at the courthouse. I was there for domestic violence case, supporting the situation. And this woman sits down next to me and she taps me on the knee and she goes, There's some crazy people in here, aren't there? Because there was a woman screaming and crying. I go, yep. I'm just staring forward because you're not supposed to communicate with anyone. And, she hits me on the knee again and she starts telling me her story about how she got married when she was young, but she had been dating this other guy, but, she married somebody else and then they got divorced and time went on and she met her true love again and they're getting married and she needs a witness. And I look like the only sane person in the courthouse at that time. So I'm staring, I'm nodding. I go, do you have any idea what courtroom this is? And the courtroom she wants to get married to is next door. So, but I went, there was no drama in there. It was paid $20, get married. People would say, I love you. I do. That's it. And no drama, no little girl dropped the flowers wrong, no nothing. And
speaking of drama, and I gotta ask because he follows celebrity news, and I know we're getting ready to wind down and everything, but there is a famous basketball wife that is claiming something that I think is next to impossible, but maybe it's more possible than I think it is. But Larsa Pippen, who apparently is now dating Michael Jordan's son, but was originally married to and lived many years with Michael Jordan's teammate, Scottie Pippen. So it's the last name that she has, Larsa Pippen. But she claims that she was that apparently Scottie was the real GOAT of the world and everything, because she claims that she had sex 4 times a night for 23 years while married to Scottie Pippen. I'm going like, that sounds like a lot. That sounds like next to impossible and everything. But Wilt Chamberlain also claimed a lot in that space as well. So, and like I said, I definitely like the heterosexual life and definitely have nothing against sex, but that seems like a whole lot of sex they deal with on that kind of average if it was every day for that amount of time. I didn't do the math, but I know that adds up to a whole lot of time. So I'm sure that you have both.
I think Chamberlain did a math error. I think he took one of his better weeks and then he just multiplied it times 52 times however many years. And
there you go. But so you're saying she's now dating Michael Jordan's son.
Son, yes.
So she's considerably older.
Yes.
So that's a conflict in our society to begin with. It's okay for the older guys to date younger women. So this is a issue as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an older woman.
Not to mention it's a celebrity's son. Oh my gosh, the shame in this.
It might be the pheromones. If you really click with somebody, like there's only been. And I'm not even that's too private, but no,
go ahead.
It's like I had one person where I just, I really together we were crazy, but sexually with her, plus it helped that I was 23.
Right.
So, but maybe there's just some chemical matchup with them that drives them insane.
It must have been
if you're just two souls that are happy together and you don't look at the age, what if you just are happy?
Well, I mean, that's fine, but that doesn't equal sex 28 times a week.
Which is what she said, 4 times a night for 23 years. So you do the math, 28 times.
I think you're right, Rick. I think he took his best week ever and ran the stats on that. Why not?
I have known some people who have naturally high levels of testosterone to the point where they are a little bit crazy. And maybe, that's a situation there.
Yeah.
And the other thing, people were saying in social media was that there was nothing. She only said that she had it that many times a day. She never said it was all with the same partner. So there's also that question as to maybe there was multiple partners going on as well, because that is definitely what social media was saying, was that there was nothing in her statement that said it was always with the basketball player, and plus the basketball players on the road. So that would lead to the fact you'll think that it might not have been him all the time.
Just give TikTok and all the other social media and AI enough time, and they will be able to tell you how many times everybody on earth has had sex in the past week.
And with that, we're going to wrap up, because I don't know if that needs to be told, but It will
No,
be.
that doesn't need to be told. And we are going to wrap up because on that note, I mean, can you imagine like you walking by and there's like a number on top of your head and you have to explain what that number is? I'm already scared of that.
You'll have to subscribe to that app.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, everyone, you have a wonderful week, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week on the Media Show. Take care.
Take it easy. Nope,